welcome to another episode of The Caption Life, a podcast that talks about how comics and our daily lives intertwine. We're going to have a special episode tonight because only two of the three, we're not like the four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? We're more like the three horsemen of the nerd apocalypse. But there's only two of us tonight.
I don't think we're coordinated enough to run the apocalypse.
Right? They would outsource that. Like we're more like the yellow minions and not like real henchmen.
Right.
So there's only two of us tonight. It's just me, Kevin in Texas, and my good buddy Sean in Indiana.
Hello.
So we're recording a special podcast tonight on August the 25th so that we can talk about some breaking news in the world of comics and pop culture. And I think the top of everybody's list right now is that Andrew Luck retired from the Colts, Sean, and I got to find out how that makes you feel. Maybe not for... Wrong podcast, I guess, really, because we're not really about football here. But I couldn't resist. I gotta say,
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. I was sitting on that one. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna pull this joke at the beginning of the podcast.
That was good.
Yeah. So, in reality, real news, a lot of big stories broke this week. Number one probably is the agreement between Sony Studios and Marvel Studios over Spider-Man has come to a screeching halt. There's different reports about like why it happened, and it probably all boils down to the almighty dollar. Sean, what do you make of this going forward, or what's your take on it?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's just like what you said. It just comes down to making a profit and everything. And I think I don't want to take sides on, who is right or who is wrong, because obviously we only get some of the details. And what I find interesting is that Kevin Feige is clearly a huge bargaining chip for Disney, because that's something that Sony had brought up specifically. My hope is that this is just a stall and it's not a done deal, that, they're no longer doing anything, that they're working on it, behind the scenes. Because I did see a couple of like YouTube videos where there's unconfirmed reports that they might actually be able to work it out. I think moving forward, I think it's just going to be a little bit awkward, at least for the MCU. I don't think it's going to, when we think about cinematically for Sony, it's not going to be that much of a problem, because they can kind of move forward and just not really mention the Avengers, especially the way that they end Spider-Man 2. Or Spider-Man Far From Home. But for the MCU, I think it's going to be a little bit awkward, because they really set everything with building the relationship with Tony Stark and Peter Parker, and kind of set up to where Peter Parker was going to at least be involved with the Avengers. Maybe not necessarily be a leader because he's still young, but I think it's just going to be kind of a harder shift for them to do that. So, but with all that being said, I think they'll still be able to do that, especially when you look at the movies that are coming out, like Eternals and Blade and stuff like that. I think they'll be able to make that shift just fine. I think it's just going to leave a lot of people disappointed, because everyone loved the relationship that Tony Stark and Spider-Man had and what he meant for the Avengers. And what I really loved about Spider-Man in this role is that he was that really good connection between fandom in the movies, right? Because while Spider-Man was fighting, especially in Civil War, he was just so much in awe. Oh my gosh, this is Captain America. I love your shield, like complimenting them and stuff like that. And he's even though he's part of the Avengers, he still looked up to these guys and just like awestruck, which is how we are with all these movies and everything, right? So he really had that great connection for the audience as well too. And it's just kind of a bummer that it's not going to keep continuing if they don't figure out a way to solve this. So
yeah, I liken it to a high stakes game of chicken, where they both want their say in the character. I think that for the sake of the dollar, I think it would be the best thing for him to remain involved in the MCU. If Sony wanted to flex a little bit more of their control muscles when, as it pertains to him, or a crossover movie with Venom. I don't think that they've gone as far as to set up a scenario where that couldn't be worked out. I just think long term, they both want control of the character, and they're in the stage now where they're going to see who blinks first. I will say this, two things. Number one is I read an article on Comic Book Resources, which sometimes Comic Book Resources can be real hit or miss with their editorials, but one that pointed out how much of a bargaining chip Tom Holland is, and that if Tom Holland wants to sign on for more movies, that he could insist that the MCU and Marvel Studios is involved in some way, shape, or form. And I think that that's absolutely correct. Like, I don't think that we give them enough credit for that. He is a very, very young kid, but we've kind of seen what has happened if Sony tries to reboot Spider-Man before. They fired Andrew Garfield, said, oh, we're not going to do a third one. And the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, there was a fourth one that was planned that after Spider-Man 3 came out, they said, no, we're going to go another direction. So I think that they would walk away from him, but I also think that would be a really huge mistake, because I think he's the people's Spider-Man. He's the one that has people's hearts. The other thing I'll say, because this is a podcast about comics, not just about comic book movies, is that Marvel controls the publishing rights to the character. And we saw this when the Fantastic Four movie came out. They did away with the Fantastic Four. They ended the book. They killed the Human Torch. There was a whole ordeal where they kind of like cut off the head of the snake so that there would be less source material for like a new movie to pull from. They definitely weren't going to help promote the movie in any way, shape, or form. And I don't know if that in the long run had a negative impact on the Fantastic Four movie, but I definitely think that if Marvel wanted to affect the release of a Spider-Man movie that they weren't involved in, they definitely could do it, especially through print.
Right, yeah. I think that's what's also like really interesting about all this is that the details are still kind of low key for the most part. Like, the only thing we really know is just some reports that came out. Sony, tweeted some stuff out about Kevin Feige, which I thought was interesting because it sounds like they wanted Kevin Feige to really be part of it, and Marvel said he's not going to be part of it. So I found that interesting because I think everyone recognizes that Feige is one of the reasons why the MCU has been doing really great. And so
he's the Bill Parcells of comic book movies.
Right, yeah. So it's just
not Bill Parcells. I'm sorry, I'm gonna re-record that. Yeah, he's the Bill Belichick of comic book movies.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, I'm gonna have to look up Bill Sells later.
Yeah, I got twisted up on because we started talking about football at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds interesting that it seems like Marvel is using Kevin Feige as a bargaining chip because I don't know why they wouldn't want him to be involved with that. I get that he has a lot going on and everything, but I think everyone can also say that Spider-Man is also one of the more successful projects that they've worked on, and it's been like the glue to it. So obviously, I think something else has kind of happened in the back end that they haven't really made public about. So I don't know, but we'll see.
So the other news coming out of this week is coming from the D23 Expo in Anaheim, which I really feel like we should go to the one in the future to cover for this podcast. Because not only are we huge fans of Marvel and things like that, you and I especially are both Disney nerds. Yep. We both frequent Disney World, and we could even, if we took a trip to Anaheim to cover D23 for our podcast, we could actually go to Disneyland too to do some research, and that'd be tax deductible, right?
Yeah, because we're getting paid for this.
Right. Like, if one of our moms gives us $1,
right,
then because she likes the job that we did on the podcast, we can say that's taxable income, and then we can write off the trip to Disneyland. That's right. So some of the stuff that's come out about that, there's some new Marvel themed attractions, but also they kind of also clarified some of the stuff that's coming in Phase 4. We have a release date for Black Panther 2, which is in May of 2022. You know what seems strange to me that movie is still a ways away. Simply because the first Black Panther film was such a huge hit, you'd have thought that they would have fast-tracked the next one to capitalize on it. And it's going to be more than a 4-year break between the two movies just because Marvel's schedule is so full.
Right.
They've just announced so much stuff. Something my son Madden told me the other day, he said that he hopes that they explore who was the king of Wakanda while T'Challa was snapped away. because it's
Oh yeah.
so much of that stuff from Endgame was kind of like glossed over, and he came back for the final battle. But that's 5 years down the road, and this is a whole country where their king has disappeared, and he wants to know. Like he's like, was it M'Baku? Was it Okoye? Who was the person in charge? And so that's something that I hope that they kind of like get into. Like I hope they touch on, what did he have to do to regain the throne? But we have that information.
Right.
We have some promotional images from Black Widow that came out today, and I even saw a poster for the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. What else are we missing?
Yes.
Oh yes, the news about the streaming stuff. Okay, so we're going to get a Miss Marvel series and a She-Hulk series. What are your thoughts on that?
And Moon Knight.
Oh, Moon Knight, yes, not to forget Moon Knight. James isn't here. He would have not let us get away without talking about Moon Knight. Although I've never actually read a Moon Knight comic. It's something on my bucket list, especially if I'm going to be preparing to watch the show.
Right. Yeah, no, same here. I think I may have heard about Moon Knight a couple of times, but I think it only came to my attention when James had brought it up when we first started this. So
he pops up in a Daredevil comic every now and again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they're both based in New York.
Right.
And then Madden tells me that he's more like, and Madden's never read a Moon Knight comic either. I mean, he just watches a lot of YouTube. He's a lot like Batman, apparently, where
that's what I've heard.
He beats people up at
right.
night. So
yeah, and he talks to the moon. So how many shows are coming out from Marvel that's going to be on Disney Plus? We got Falcon and Winter Soldier. We got WandaVision, we got Loki, we have, what's the other one? Oh, Hawkeye. And then the three we just mentioned, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, and Moon Knight. So that's 7 shows they have coming out.
7 live action shows, and then the animated What If show. And I saw the What If Peggy Carter became Captain Britain. There was some some of the animation or some stills from that, and it looks spectacular too. So
right.
I don't know. Like we said, we're both big fans of Disney, and I think that they've just come up with another way to take our money because I know that it's not just this stuff. There's the Star Wars stuff that they've mentioned, but they just got such a wealth of properties now that these characters that we care about, they are the stewards of getting those shows onto television, and we're seeing not just what we would consider like B and C list like comic book superheroes get TV shows, but like just a variety of different types of characters, and from different both male and female characters, different nationalities or different ethnicities and whatnot. It's much more eclectic, or I'm looking for the words, but it's really encouraging that they've got a lot of different stories to tell, and they're going to do that in a variety of ways.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I will say what I'm most excited about is the Miss Marvel TV show that they're going to come out, because one thing that I think is really exciting is that if you haven't read Miss Marvel, which did you get a chance to read that today?
Yes, I read it today. I read the first I'm on issue number 5, the first 5 issues of Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, because we're preparing to do a future podcast about religion and comics, so we were all brushing up on that.
Right, yeah. Well, and for the first time when that got announced that they're doing Miss Marvel, I was thinking to myself, I keep hearing about Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. I know about Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel, but I've never read any of the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel comics. And so last night I got on Marvel Unlimited and started to read like the first issue, and I stayed up probably like an hour just reading through like the first 5 or 6 issues, and it was really good because it's one of the unique things about this series, I think, is that it started from her identity as a young Muslim teenager who is a huge fan of the Avengers. Like, she created fan fiction and stuff like that about the Avengers and everything, and that's how she ended up getting the mantle of Miss Marvel. Is like when she got her powers, she wanted to be like Miss Marvel for a number of different reasons, but it really focuses on her identity as a young Muslim teenager in a high school that doesn't really think that, she's pretty or beautiful or anything like that. She wants to be like somebody else. And I think that's going to be a really great connection and a really good audience to really reach out to, is to be able to tell that story of what that experience is like for a Muslim and a teenage Muslim in the United States. And I think they're going to have some interesting ways of telling that story that's updated and that will be at the forefront, because I was trying to think about this last night and even this morning. Like, I don't know if there's been any television show or popular movie that really uses that Muslim identity at the forefront of their show. And I struggled to come up with one. And so I really hope that Miss Marvel can be really I really hope that Miss Marvel can be the front runner for that.
Well, and I think it's interesting too that as 21st century comics have kind of changed, not changed, I guess, to become more inclusive. Like they know that their market is more than just middle-aged white men who are looking for superhero stories, that some of the biggest growth you have seen in popularity of characters has been these female characters, and she's right at the top of the list. I mean, at Marvel specifically, Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, you've got Squirrel Girl, even Spider-Gwen, and things like that. Like these characters are now, like, I was online, somebody was selling the first appearance of Spider-Gwen at a local comic book shop, and it was like $250.
Oh, wow.
And because that character has become such an important part of the Spider-Verse, and I think it's great. I love the idea of the She-Hulk show too, because the Daredevil show didn't really get into the aspects of him being a lawyer, but she's also a lawyer. So I hope that not only is it like a kick-ass show, but also that they make it like a legal drama, something akin to The Practice or something like that.
Right.
Because I think that would be an interesting take on it.
Right. Yeah. Well, the Daredevil show did focus a little bit about his law practice, but I think you're right. Like, I didn't read She-Hulk a whole lot, but the sense I get is that it does focus a lot more about her work in the legal system than Daredevil did, because Daredevil was always like lawyer by day, vigilante by night type of thing, but it didn't really center around his work.
Right.
Not as like a... Well, how do I say this? Because that is part of his identity as a lawyer, but I feel like in the comics it was less about that and more about how he struggled with being a vigilante and being like a Catholic and like the morality of that and things like that. Whereas like lawyers is kind of like almost like a means to an end, which he was really good at. But I think with what I've heard about and skimmed through with She-Hulk is that her being a lawyer is actually more at the forefront of her identity and takes a more presence in the comics as well too. So
yeah, that's going to be neat. Anything else that we're missing? Are you scrolling through your phone for all the Twitter updates to see like, hey, what do we need to talk about?
Well, just in case we're talking and they're like, breaking news, Marvel and Sony figured out how to keep Spider-Man in the MCU, but I did not get that.
Could you imagine how awesome it'd be if we could break that live on... Well, I mean, we're not live. We're recording this, and like I'm in my office, and you're in. Wait, you got an office. You're not in your closet anymore.
No, I graduated from closet to spare bedroom that was been collecting dust, basically. So
it was your nursery, right? It was the nursery for your child.
Yeah, it started off as a nursery for my kid, and then we actually moved him out from this room into his room now. But it's been unused for the most part for like 3 years, maybe 4, because the only time we actually ever use this room is 1 to store stuff, or 2 to make dehydrated fruit with. Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you guys who are listening to this podcast and you can't see this, Sean is sitting in this room, and behind him there are some dolphins on the wall, and then there is also a poster of the X-Men and the Iron Gauntlet. So
it's a nice balance.
Yeah, it's a balance. I told him that he should get a Aquaman fathead to put up there next to those dolphins, so it looks like he was controlling them or telling them what to do.
Right.
All right. So I doubled back over to Twitter to look at things. So we also know that in Disneyland, the California Adventure Park is going to have a new area dubbed Avengers Campus. Mm-hmm. So the Avengers Campus is going to be highlighted. It says a new Spider-Man ride is at the top of the list for the Disney theme park attractions. I know that they've added some things in their stuff across the world, starting with Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, which they did at Disneyland. They retrofitted an older version of Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters to Ant-Man and the Wasp ride, and they did that in Shanghai, and I think that they're going to be bringing that to Disneyland as well. Mm-hmm. And of course in Disney World, we have the brand new Guardians of the Galaxy coaster coming to Epcot, which I've seen the footage of that, and that looks really, really amazing.
Oh, nice. I don't think I've seen that yet.
So on the new Guardians of the Galaxy coaster at Epcot, it's going to be an indoor coaster, and it's a story coaster that the car of the roller coaster will pivot on the track to face the story. So it's not like a lateral movement. Like you'll be going down the track, and all of a sudden you'll be looking at a battle scene or something going on to the left, and as you bank on the roller coaster, your car will also turn and point you to a new scene. They were doing some testing with the roller coaster like outdoors, and it looks amazing. The cars look like the Milano spaceship. The styling they have, it's all really, really, really cool stuff. So we have to start planning our joint Disney World vacation for 2021 when all this stuff opens.
I know, that's right. Yeah, we're going to start doing that now.
Yeah, we should. It's going to be a family tradition. So the Marvel rides at Disney World are all going to be centered around the Guardians of the Galaxy or something that is not Avengers themed, because they don't have the right to have Avengers stuff in Florida. They licensed that stuff out to Universal years ago, and Universal's Island of Adventure has that stuff. Have you ever taken a trip over there to check that stuff out?
Not in a while. We went I think 4 years ago.
Okay, that's about the same time. That's about the same time I went. Was about 4 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we were there the same time.
I don't know. I'll go look at all my pictures to see if I can see you.
See if I show in the background.
No, but I thought it was really cool. I know that they've made some changes to it. One of the things that I think that will work in Disney's favor with all that stuff is that eventually that stuff is going to get old, and they're going to have to start pumping new money into it, and since they could probably use that space for other things that they own the license for, like the Harry Potter world there is enormous, and it's always getting bigger. I could see that eventually them giving up on the Marvel superhero license, but it is a really, really cool place, especially if you are a comics fan, to go and check out. Just walk through the area and see all the artwork from Adam Kubert, who is a well-renowned comic book artist. He did all of the panels that you see like as decoration, and if you look closely, you can see the places where he hid his name or his initials in all the drawings, because they wouldn't let him put his name on it. So there are like different places where you can see his name written. Like,
smart.
You know how like Homer Simpson, his ear is an M and a G for the guy that created it, Mac Groening, I think that's how you say it. Yeah. So like he did the same thing. So like in like Wolverine, the hair on Wolverine's arm, I think is like says Adam. He did it in almost everything. It's really, really cool.
I'm glad to start like paying attention to this now.
Yeah,
these like nice little Easter eggs.
And he's a super cool guy. Like my son and I got to meet him a few years ago at a con, and he was working through his schedule at the con, and we were talking to another artist, and he looked up and saw my son dressed as Cyclops, and he's like, I drew Cyclops a few times. And my son looked at him, and my son is a big comic book nerd and knew exactly who he was. So my son pulled out a picture of him dressed as Cyclops and signed it for him, and then Adam Kubert got him a Wolverine poster and signed it for him and gave it back to him. It was like a really, really and he wasn't there at the time on duty. Like there wasn't a line. He was just like sitting there by himself, and he took the time to like talk to Matt, and it was a really cool experience for us.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm no kidding. I love like hearing stories like that when celebrities and well-known people like seem to do like genuine things where like, they're not doing this for the publicity or anything like that, but just like a little story like that where it just kind of goes a long way, right?
Right. Well, and he especially, he's been in the business now for 30 years. His dad is a legend, and they have a school that the Kubert School for Graphic Design, where they're training the next era of artists. My son wants to go there when he graduates high school. But so he was there for like the people. Well, right. A lot of artists go to the conventions because it's a second source of income. They don't get paid. I mean, unless you're like one of those top guys, and he definitely is one of those, but they don't get paid, millions of dollars. So they go and they sell a couple of posters and things like that. And, it helps them out. And he was definitely there for the people. It was a pretty cool experience.
Good. Yeah. I can only imagine that if you're not like an above the line writer, you have to do stuff like that to keep doing that and make ends meet.
Yeah. And oftentimes those guys are really cool too. I mean, like when I had a chance to talk to Peter J. Tomasi about writing the Superman run that he did and a lot of it with dealing with Clark and with Bruce as fathers, because he introduced their kids into the story. Right. I just broke something in my office.
I heard a snap somewhere.
Yeah, it's I was putting my foot up on a plastic basket. So he was talking about like what it meant to be a dad and to write from the perspective of being a dad, and man, I was like, I really connected with him just from reading it, but also like talking to it, and you walk away from it and be like, you know what, me and Peter J. Tomasi are friends. Like, you guys don't even realize this, that like we're like bros now,
right? So yeah, it's a cool experience. Nice. Okay, any other big news that's come out? We talked about Spider-Man. We talked about all things Marvel coming through to the MCU and the Disney streaming. But did we miss anything? I think those are the big ones right now. Like the other things that they really came out was Kit Harrington.
Oh yes,
Eternals. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't talk about Kit Harrington being cast. No, we exchanged on Twitter the other day about who Kit Harrington was going to play, and I was full stop, all go, ready for them to announce that he was going to be Wolverine. Right. And he's not going to be Wolverine.
Nope.
And
that's okay.
Yeah, so they announced that he's going to be Dane Whitman, who will eventually, and this is going to be in the Eternals movie next year, and he eventually, hopefully, we'll see him in full Black Knight regalia at some point.
Right.
And
which that one I'm not familiar with, so.
Yeah, he was big like in the 80s, early 90s as part of the Avengers, and I have some old comic books from like when I first started collecting. I've always wanted to cosplay as Dane Whitman's Black Knight because essentially he wears jeans and a really cool t-shirt and a leather jacket, and he has a helmet and a lightsaber.
And a lightsaber?
Seriously, it's like a sword that glows like a lightsaber.
Nice.
And I guess now that's not a problem because Disney owns both Star Wars and Marvel, so they can be like, yep, that's Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, and he's got a lightsaber. Ultimate crossover event.
I'm sure someone in Disney is thinking like, how could we take the MCU and make it part of the Star Wars universe as well too?
Right, like Captain Marvel shows up somewhere like on Tatooine right, because she's got the ability to do that. That would be pretty cool.
Right. Well, so he has to go back in time too, because it's a long time ago.
Right. And they've dropped hints at things like in Spider-Man Homecoming, where it's like, you guys ever seen this old movie Empire Strikes Back?
Right.
Yeah, we know that it exists in the MCU, but I guess it's also just a form of entertainment for them as well.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Now, we know that a couple of weeks ago, like DC announced that they were going to be like transitioning, and Warner Brothers are going to be transitioning to a new streaming service called HBO Max that was going to offer their Warner Brothers catalog, as well as all the stuff that's available on the DC streaming service. I don't know if they announced that the DC streaming service was going to be going away, but I do believe that all the stuff that is offered is going to be going to the HBO Max. And there's still some of that stuff that I want to check out, but I'm telling you right now, when Disney Plus drops and I can pay $12.99 for ESPN, Hulu, and Disney Plus a month, that's a bargain. So I'm definitely going to be signing up.
I know. Well, because not just a bargain, but it's quality as well too, right?
Right. All right, well, we didn't have James with us tonight, but it was a good conversation on breaking news, and hopefully we're going to get this out to your inquiring ears before the end of the week. But that wraps up another episode of the Caption Life podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform, and you can reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram at Caption Life. So until next time, peace.
Peace out.